Hello everyone and welcome to today's video. Today I am doing a hypothetical 2028 presidential election prediction, and this one I have not done this one in a very long time. This is now Kentucky Governor Andy Beshear being the Democratic candidate and Vice President JD Vance being the Republican candidate. So there's a few things I want to get out of the way first. The first thing being are the current approval ratings and polling numbers as Donald Trump. So this is me forecasting the 2028 presidential election based on the current polling data that we have available to us today. Yes, obviously polling data will probably change by 2028, but using today's polling data, this is how I think the election will ultimately go. And based on the polling data right now, President Trump's approval rating is currently sitting at roughly negative 16 points right now, 56.8 to 40.6. So overall, 16.2% negative for Donald Trump. For Vice President JD Vance, who's the Republican nominee in this matchup, it's not faring too much better, though it is about 6 points better. It's still in the negative at 39.4% favorable to 49% unfavorable. As Trump's vice president, Vance will do a good job at getting a lot of the Republicans loyal to the president and Republicans that support the job Trump is doing out to vote for him, but winning over independents and even some disillusioned Democrats is going to be difficult for Vance in this election matchup. As for Andy Beshear is the Democratic governor of the state of Kentucky, a state that he won re-election in 2023 in a hard-fought battle by 5.1% against the Republican candidate now for Senate in Daniel Cameron. Beshear is someone that Democrats, I think, would love to have in the general election in terms of what he could do if he can get through the Democratic primary. His biggest issue would probably be winning the Democratic primary. If he did get there, he's someone that could look to impose a part of the Democratic Party like a Bill Clinton-esque type candidate, someone that could try and play in more of the Rust Belt states like Iowa and Ohio, and maybe try and do better in some of the Republican states and the margins on those. Now, that being said, I know this question is going to come up. Would Andy Beshear win his home state of Kentucky? I do have to remind you, it voted for Donald Trump by 30.5% in 2024, including nearly almost every single county in the state outside of Fayette and Jefferson. So can Andy Beshear win the state of Kentucky even with him as the presidential candidate? No, I don't think he could, but I do think he would significantly cut into the margins. I don't think it would be a 30-point win. I think it would be around like a 15 to 18-point win, which would be a very significant move in the Democrats' direction. But a governor's race is one thing, a presidential race is another. You could ask Mitt Romney in Massachusetts about that, or Donald Trump in New York. But for Kentucky, I do think JD Vance would still win that one in a safe Republican column. But Andy Beshear, I think there are a lot of Republican states that would fall under 15 points due to him being the Democratic candidate. So with that said, let's get things going here. First things first, I'm going to go through the states that I think would be over 15 points for Beshear, and those would be Washington, Oregon, California, Hawaii. Colorado would also go over 15 points, Illinois, and then Washington, D.C., Maryland, D.C., New York, Connecticut, Rhode Island. Rhode Island's not clicking for some reason. Massachusetts, Vermont. Okay, so Rhode Island did work. It was just a little delayed. Vermont and Maine's 1st Congressional District would all 100% be safe Democratic wins. And now it's possible as well we could see some improvements off the 2024 map of Beshear. A state like Maine, which is about a 7-point win. New Jersey, about a 6-point win. In 2020, Maine was about 9 points. New Jersey was about 16 points. So it's possible these states could go above 15, but overall, I'm not totally sure Maine will be able to. New Jersey will be just a bit shy of going over 15 points, but I will put it in the safe Democratic category along with the state of Virginia, a state that after the Trump administration's efforts of trying to cut back on the government spending and such, and with the Doge and that whole thing, did not play very well in the general election in the governor's race. And I think Andy Beshear is someone that would do very well in the D.C. suburbs, as well as make some inroads in rural Virginia as well, a part of the state that's very red. Beshear making those inroads would make Virginia go safe for the Democrats. New Mexico and Minnesota would also be very nearly close to being safe, but I think would fall just a bit under in this scenario. So with that said, Beshear's off to 204. Vance now going through the states that would be safe for him. I think Utah, Wyoming, and Idaho would still be safe. Montana voted for Donald Trump about 19.9%. So that's one that would be competitive, but I think we'd actually see Vance win it by a likely margin, fall under just a bit that 15-point threshold. North and South Dakota, I think, would be safe. Nebraska at large would be safe, along with the 3rd district. The 1st district, I think we would see go likely for JD Vance. And while we're here, I think Beshear would win the 2nd district by close to a safe margin, right around a likely Democratic margin. It voted for Kamala Harris by about 4.7%. In 2024 and 2020, Joe Biden won it by 6.6%. I think we'd likely see it be right around a 10 to possibly even 11-point margin for Beshear there. The state of Kansas, I do think would vote for JD Vance, but I think would also do so in a likely margin. It voted for Trump by 16 points in 2024, 14.6 in 2020. I think we'd see it happen there once again, falling under 15 points. Oklahoma, I do think that will be safe, along with Louisiana, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. I think would all be safe states. The state of Tennessee, despite being somewhat competitive on the Senate election in 2018, I don't think Beshear and neighboring Kentucky would do enough to bring it under 15 points. So I think we'd still see Tennessee be a safe Republican state. South Carolina, though, I think possibly could be. It's 17.9% win for Trump in 2024, 11.7% in 2020. I think we'd see Beshear cut into the margins enough where JD Vance would win South Carolina by a likely Republican margin. The state of Missouri, I think, would also be similar to this. It was 18.4% for Trump in 2024, went for Trump at 15.4% in 2020. So it's just right outside that margin, but I'd put Missouri in the likely Republican category. Indiana is also going to be close to that. It was 19 points for Trump in 2020 voted for Trump by 16.1. I'm going to very narrowly put it as safe Republican, but that one could definitely fall into the likely Republican category as well. But Indiana will put it safe. West Virginia will be safe as well. This puts Republicans up to 122. Andy Beshear, or JD Vance at 122, Andy Beshear at 205. Now some more states I think go in the likely category. First things first, we're going to start with the state of Florida, which voted for Donald Trump by 13.1%. Even in 2020, it was more of a lean state, voting for Trump over Biden by 3.4%. Still, Florida has moved very much to the Republican direction in the past few years. Even with the inroads I think Beshear would get, we'd still probably see a win for Vance of at least 8 points or so in Florida, and that would put it in likely Republican. The states of New Mexico, which was a likely Democratic win in 2024 of 6 points for Biden, and 2020 was about an 11-point win. I think we'd see that one be likely again. Minnesota was about a 4.2% win for Kamala Harris in 2024. It went for Biden by 7.1. In 2020, I think Andy Beshear would likely grow on those margins, and that would put Minnesota in the likely Democratic category as well for 2028. It is possible it could go into safe, but again, I think it would be likely Democratic. The state of Maine, as I was alluding to earlier, I think would also go in the likely Democratic category as well. And I think there is one more state that I think would go in the likely Democratic category as well, but I will show the results from Maine real quick. Again, 6.9 in 2024. The state of New Hampshire voted for Kamala Harris by 2.8%. Over Donald Trump, fell under that 5-point margin. New Hampshire was won by Biden by 7.4%. In 2020, Andy Beshear, I think, is honestly one of the better candidates suited to win the state of New Hampshire, a state that really, I would say the more moderate the candidate, the better they would do in a general election at the presidential level. And I think Beshear, being the governor of a state like Kentucky, of a red state, I think would certainly appeal to a state like New Hampshire, and New Hampshire would go by around 9 points for Andy Beshear over JD Vance, giving its 4 electoral votes to Beshear. I think while we're up in New England, I do think JD Vance would win Maine's 2nd congressional district. The margins in which it goes, though, would be very interesting. It voted for Trump by 9 points in 2024. 2020, it voted for Trump by 7.4% against Biden. Again, I think this is a district Beshear would do very well in, so I think Vance will win it, but I think it will fall under 5 points and be a lean Republican win for Vance there. Next, we're going to go to the state of Alaska, which the Senate level, Mary Peltola, it's certainly very competitive. Beshear, I think, will be more competitive in this race as well, but I do think it will go likely for the Republicans. It voted for Trump by 13 points in 2024, for Trump by 10 points in 2020. I think a 10-point victory is right around where Alaska would go in this matchup of Vance versus Beshear. The state of Texas, I think, would go likely for Vance as well against Andy Beshear, bringing him up to 196, voting for Trump by 13.7 in 2024, despite only being a 5.6% win in 2020. Beshear would need a very big shift to get it under 5 points for 2028. It is possible, but I think it would stay in the likely Republican category of 5 to 15. Just to reiterate, if I haven't made it clear, by the way, in this video, over 15 points is safe. In between 15 and 5 points is likely. In between 5 and 1 is considered lean. And anything 1 and under is considered tilt. So that's how the map is shaping up thus far. It puts Vance at 196. Beshear is at 226. Iowa and Ohio are going to be very interesting because they're sort of right borderline for me right now between lean and likely. As Beshear being from Kentucky, I think is going to do a lot more appealing in states like Iowa and Ohio, which voted very solidly for Trump in 2024. 11 points for Trump in Ohio, 13 points for Trump in Iowa. In 2020, Trump won Iowa by 8.2, Ohio by 8. Now, Ohio is JD Vance's home state, but it is possible Vance could potentially win these states, but win it by under 5 points or right at the 5-point margin. And I am going to start those states out in the lean Republican category right now, putting Vance up to 219 electoral votes. So now we have the swing states, the main swing states that were talked about for 2024 of Wisconsin, Michigan, Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Georgia, Arizona, and Nevada. These were the toss-ups in 24, and are looking like they'll be the toss-ups again for 2028. Now, Andy Beshear being the governor of Kentucky, someone that I think, again, will be viewed more as a moderate Democrat, a Democrat that can win over a lot of independents and maybe even some Republicans, is someone that I think would play very well in the states in the Rust Belt, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. I think he's someone that certainly would do very well in the state of Pennsylvania as well, a state that voted for Donald Trump over Joe Biden by 1.7%. It voted for Biden over Trump by 1.2%. And voted for Trump in 2016 by 0.72. It's a state that's been one of the closest states in the country the last 3 cycles now. And you see these key counties, Bucks County barely voting red, Northampton barely voting red, Monroe barely voting red, and these counties like Lackawanna being narrow Democrat, Lehigh narrow Democrat, Center County narrow Democrat as well. I think Andy Beshear will improve on the rural counties as well, and I think he'll also do very well in the suburban counties. I think we see Andy Beshear win Pennsylvania by around a 3 to 4 point margin in Pennsylvania, making it lean Democratic. The state of Wisconsin has been similarly very close, but actually even closer. It voted for Donald Trump by 0.86% in 2024, Joe Biden by 0.63% in 2020, and Donald Trump by 0.76% in 2016. I think Beshear, again, would do very well surrounding the Dane County areas like in Columbia County, Sauk County, Iowa County, Greene County, and Rock County, these places that Trump did very well in to win in 2024, as well as Racine County and Kenosha County as well. I think Beshear would also win Wisconsin by a similar margin of around 3 points, flipping it to the Democratic side. Now neighboring Michigan, no surprise here. Michigan has voted in unison with Wisconsin and Pennsylvania going back to the 1980s. They voted for Trump by 1.4% in 2024, voted for Biden by 2.8% in 2020, and voted for Trump by 0.22% in 2016. Before 2024, before the 1.4 result, I would have said Michigan was the most Democratic of the 3 Rust Belt states. Now, based on the margins of 2024, that would be Wisconsin. But I do still think Michigan is going to do well for Andy Beshear in this matchup, especially in Wayne County where Detroit is and the surrounding areas will likely get bluer. I think we'd see Andy Beshear narrowly win Michigan, possibly by a little bit more than 5 points. But we're going to leave it a little bit under right now. That would put Beshear at 270 electoral votes and would get him the bare minimum to win the presidential election against JD Vance. But it does not stop there, because those are all flips in the Rust Belt. Another swing state that I do think would flip in this matchup would be the state of Georgia. Georgia only voted in 2024 for Donald Trump by 2.2% against Kamala Harris. Joe Biden won it over Trump by 0.24% in 2020. I think 2028 is the election where the Democrats are looking to win Georgia again and continue that trend of growth in the Atlanta suburbs and the inner city Atlanta as well. Andy Beshear, I think, is someone that can do well enough in rural Georgia while keeping those Democratic gains in Atlanta, even if he doesn't do as well as Kamala Harris in inner city Atlanta, the surrounding suburbs, and the rural areas. He may do well enough where I think Georgia flips by under 1 point and goes for Andy Beshear in this election scenario. Now we also go to the state of North Carolina, a state that Donald Trump won in 2024 by 3.2%. It went in 2020 for Trump by 1.3%, in 2016 for Trump by 3.7%. Now, if you watch my channel for a while, you would know North Carolina is a state I'm usually pretty reluctant on to give the Democrats at the presidential level. I usually have it go for the Republicans in almost every scenario. But I actually do think Andy Beshear versus JD Vance currently today, I think there is a real possibility North Carolina goes to the Democrat by under 1 point, even under half a percentage point, due to the fact that Beshear, again, being from almost neighboring Kentucky, not neighboring exactly, but almost, would do well enough in the red areas and suppress the margins a little bit that the Republicans would typically get, and do well in the suburban areas, as well as getting out turnout in Raleigh, in Charlotte, in Mecklenburg County, in these big areas in North Carolina, would be enough for Andy Beshear to narrowly defeat JD Vance in North Carolina as well. So North Carolina, I think, would go for Andy Beshear in this very close matchup. Next, we have the state of Nevada, which swung hard to President Trump, voting for Trump by 3.1% in 2024 after Joe Biden won it in 2020 by 2.4%. A large reason being Clark County, which went from a 9.4% win for Biden, only a 2.6% win for Kamala Harris. I think Andy Beshear in this matchup would win the state of Nevada by also around a 1-point margin. A large reason being the swing back in Clark County, given, I believe, the economy, and I think it was there's some tourism issues happening in Las Vegas as well. Nevada, I think, would swing back to Andy Beshear, getting him up to 308 electoral votes. Vance still at 219. The last remaining battleground state that I think will be the closest of them all may be the state of Arizona, because Arizona did vote in 2024 for Donald Trump by about 5.5%, which was a massive swing from the 2020 margin of 0.3% that Joe Biden got against Donald Trump. It's very possible Andy Beshear could win the state of Arizona and complete the run of all the battleground states that Trump won in 2024, but it's also possible JD Vance, given the swings in Maricopa County specifically from 2020 to 2024, Maricopa voting for Trump by 3.5%. Well, Biden won it by 2.2. It's possible Vance can hold Maricopa County and maybe even lose it by half a percentage point and still hold on here, given the shifts in Arizona in 2024. So I'm going to very narrowly give the state of Arizona to JD Vance by an absolute thinnest of margins, putting the electoral map at 308 for Andy Beshear to 230 for JD Vance. But Arizona, Nevada, Georgia, North Carolina, all super, super close. Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania, all under 5 points, but more than one as well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like and subscribe if you did. Leave all your thoughts and your predictions in the comment section down below, what you think of this video and how you think this matchup of Beshear versus Vance would ultimately shake out. Again, thank you so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed this video and hope to see you in the next one.